Hello everyone, Mason here. How are you doing? June was a fantastic reading month for me. As of July the 4th, I've been doing this 5 months, and in the months leading up to June, I read 10 books. I read 7 in June, which is insanity. Up until now, I haven't been able to justify doing a wrap-up video, but since I had such a good month, I thought, why not take you on this blind bookworm's June reading journey? All aboard the Wrap-Up Express. Unfortunately, June did not get off to a good start. Now I thought to myself, Mason, you've been staying in your lane, in your comfort zone, reading contemporary romance and crime. Why not be adventurous and try something different? After all, in the past you have enjoyed a good sci-fi, so why not dip your toe into that genre? I downloaded Terminus by Peter Clines. That ended up being a mistake. Now it's difficult to tell you what Terminus is about because, to tell you the truth, I DNF'd it. But essentially, there's a religious family or cult that have all gone through some sort of physical change. They're attempting to bring these beings that they believe to be gods through from another universe, and they travel to an isolated island in the middle of the ocean where they believe there's a portal that they can use to do so. The first few hours were slow. By the time I'd listened to the first hour, I was already feeling slightly bored and had that gnawing feeling. I'm not going to like this, am I? No, I didn't. We were jumping back and forth between two perspectives. Neither of them was interesting, but one of them was at least more interesting than the other. But things really started to fall apart once we actually got to the island. The island is weird. There's all sorts of strange things happening, and I was already starting to think, yeah mate, I watched Lost as well. And then a fog monster appeared, and I facepalmed so hard that I almost turned my own face inside out. The final nail in the coffin came when I reached an action scene. Things started to happen. There was a monster attacking a ship out at sea. A gigantic monster with wings and tentacles that made people's eyes bleed while they were looking at it. And I felt nothing. And that's when I realised, this one ain't for me. I can't say it was bad, because I didn't get far enough into it to know if it was or not. It just wasn't my thing. If you like gigantic monsters with wings and tentacles, you might love it, and that's a good thing. It's horses for courses, different strokes for different folks. Everyone has their own tastes. At the same time, as someone that's easily terrified, whose dreams are easily affected by what I'm reading, if there is some sort of monster and I'm not even slightly scared, are you really doing it right? It was a shame that one didn't work for me, but never mind, another one bites the dust. After that, I got back in my lane and threw myself into a thriller. This time, it was 29 Seconds by T.M. Logan. I say I got back in my lane, and whilst 29 Seconds is a thriller, it also deals with a topic that I'm triggered by and usually makes me feel very uncomfortable. So imagine my surprise when I ended up really liking it. Again, just like with the last book, it's difficult to tell you what 29 Seconds is about, but this time it's mostly because I feel like going in blind is the best way to do it. If you're a thriller fan, I think that this one is definitely something that you would enjoy. There was a massive twist that I did not see coming. Be warned though, 29 Seconds does deal with abuse of power, misogyny in the workplace, and centres around a character who's being sexually harassed on a regular basis. I think it says a lot about the quality of the book though that I finished it, and I'm the sort of person who would usually run as fast as possible in the opposite direction as soon as an author even hints at anything surrounding sexual assault. The way the story unfolds is crazy. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and I was freaking out when we got to the part with the twist that I just mentioned. The central premise regarding an opportunity that comes the way of our main character is interesting, unique, and unlike anything else that I've ever read. The antagonist though? Oh, the antagonist is just a creep. I would highly recommend 29 Seconds. like I said, you just have to go into it knowing that it's going to deal with some uncomfortable situations, but in my opinion was totally worth the ride for the twists and turns that the story takes. I never ended up recording a dedicated review for 29 seconds because I knew talking about it without spoilers would be incredibly hard, and I really do think that going in blind is the best way to tackle that book. Whilst at the time I was disappointed because I did want to talk about it, I'm glad that I didn't try, because that's where the seed for this video came from. I knew that if I got through enough books then I could do a wrap up, which I haven't had the chance to do before. After feeling comforted by a thriller, I decided that I felt ready to try diving into something different, and I moved on to Animal Farm by George Orwell. As I've mentioned in past videos, I listened to 1984 last year and absolutely loved it. After that, I knew that I had to listen to Animal Farm at some point. The Orwell collection, which actually contains 1984 and Animal Farm, is narrated by Stephen Fry, and I honestly can't think of anyone better to do it. I don't think I would have enjoyed Animal Farm even half as much without his narration. The reason I never ended up doing a dedicated review, despite really enjoying it, is that I just don't feel qualified to. I know people far more educated than me would listen to Animal Farm and think, "This is a highly political book. I can definitely see how all of the characters relate to historical figures, and talks about the dangers of communism." Meanwhile, my reaction was, "Oh, talking animals, that's so cute." Here's the problem with analogies. If the reader doesn't know much about the subject matter, they aren't going to receive the intended message. Truth be told, I'm not that politically educated. I don't know much about communism, and that's not what I was thinking about while I was reading Animal Farm. That doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy the story though, and it also doesn't mean that I didn't take anything from it. I wasn't just thinking about how cute it was that the animals could talk. There's the value of hard work, the dangers of propaganda, how easy it can be for someone to put themselves in a position of power and manipulate those who are just looking for an easy life, as well as a warning against becoming what you hate. The main thing that I took away from Animal Farm though, and in my opinion this is the most important lesson possible: you should never trust a pig. They're evil, lying, manipulative, greedy little... Napoleon, no! Get off me! Stop it! I'm sorry! I'm sorry! Please ignore my previous statement. I was mistaken. Pigs are fine, upstanding, moral members of society. Probably the most valuable asset our society can have. Is that good enough? After that, I rolled a dice to randomly choose one of the books from my library, and ended up with The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of the Window and Disappeared by Jonas Jonasson. Now, I can't believe that that's a real title either. This one centres around a man called Alan, who runs away from his old people's home on his 100th birthday and ends up going on a crazy adventure. At the same time, we get to learn about Alan's life in a Forrest Gump-esque storyline that uses the events of the 20th century as a backdrop. This was the first somewhat disappointing experience of the month. It was a lot of fun to start with, charming and unique. I can't say that I've ever read anything like it before. It was almost like reading a children's story written for adults. There was all sorts of funny asides and tangents. The various insane situations that Alan would accidentally get himself into were amusing, but eventually it started to feel like it was meandering, dragging its feet. It lasted too long and outstayed its welcome with me. It really is a shame because I did enjoy the first half, and I think if it had been split into two shorter books, allowing me to leave some time between them, I think I would have enjoyed both of them, rather than getting tired of it and just begging for it to be over. I do have a full review available for The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared, which I recorded in audio log format, where I updated my thoughts between each reading session. If you're new here and you're interested, I'll leave the link in the description. Hoping for something a little bit better this time, I rolled the dice again and got a romance. With a feeling of relief, I began to read Summer at Skylark Farm by Heidi Swain. This centres around Amber, a career-driven woman who lives in London. She's tired of being consumed by a job, working long hours and having no time for her boyfriend Jake. So when he suggests moving to his family farm in the countryside, she decides to say yes. Unfortunately, Summer at Skylark Farm was not for me. Truth be told, I found it a little bit boring, maybe even more than a little bit. I also didn't buy the romance at all, which is the main point of the book. Amber is a nice enough character, but I couldn't stand Jake. They've been together a year at the start of the book, and yet Jake is perfectly willing to call it quits and move to the farm anyway, even if she says no. Then when she says yes, he spends the entire book just acting like she's not doing things right, no matter how hard she tries, keeping secrets from her, belittling her, and just generally being a dick. There's also the central conflict that I had a problem with. When the inevitable argument happens towards the end of the book, the thing they argue about is a non-issue. It shouldn't have been a problem, but it was. Never mind though, it's resolved in like half an hour. It's the first romance I've read where I've spent the whole time rooting for the couple to just break up because I didn't feel like they were right for each other. It's not something that I'll ever read again, and it's definitely not one that I would recommend to other people. Starting to lose faith in this dice rolling idea, I decided to give it one more try. This time, it gave me something completely different. Have you ever wondered what happens to an astronaut's body when they die in space? Or if your beloved pet can be buried alongside you? Most importantly, have you ever wondered if you can keep your parents' skulls as decorative ornaments after they die? All of these questions and more are answered in Caitlin Doty's Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? That's right guys, I finally got to a non-fiction. I got smarter! Probably. For those of you who don't know, Caitlin Doty is a YouTuber and a mortician. A mortician on a mission to make society death positive. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs is a book written to answer questions entirely submitted by children. It's actually a really short book. I'm pretty sure it's less than 5 hours. Caitlin narrates it herself. She has a weird but charming sense of humour. As someone that Caitlin would call death-phobic, I actually found it a fascinating read and a lot of fun. There's some really interesting questions, and just a few that made me slightly worried that a child thought of that. For a book that's all about death, it's surprisingly entertaining, and I enjoyed it a lot. Faith restored, the dice got another roll. Almost as if it was trying to apologise for its previous mistake, it chose another romance. This time, it was If I Never Met You by Vori McFarlane. Honestly, this is probably my favourite of the month. A fake dating story about Laurie and Jamie, two barristers who work for the same law firm. Laurie is unceremoniously dumped by a long-term partner after 18 years, and Jamie wants a promotion but has a bad reputation as the company's womanising playboy. After getting stuck in a lift and being forced to talk to each other, they end up deciding it would be mutually beneficial to start fake dating. Laurie can rub the new relationship in a bastard of an ex-boyfriend's face, and Jamie can start to repair his reputation by proving he can be a responsible adult in a committed relationship. Although it may not sound like it would have a lot of depth, surprisingly it does. It deals with troubled family dynamics, sexism in the workplace, the expectations placed on both genders, and how harmful it can be to place preconceived judgments on people before you get to know them. It does hit a lot of the beats you think it's going to, but there are some surprises. Is it flawless? No. But it's an enjoyable story with some sweet moments, likeable characters, and some insightful things to say in my opinion. If you're interested in hearing my thoughts in more detail, I do have a full review available that I'll link in the description. Finally, for my last book of the month, I took matters into my own hands. I wanted to choose something outside of my comfort zone, so I went for a horror. I chose Under the Blade by Matt Serafini. I honestly don't want to say too much about Under the Blade because I can't be bothered. It had so much potential and was disappointing, incredibly disappointing. It started off well and then exploded in a fiery ball of awful. It's a small town slasher about an unlikable final girl who returns to the town where her friends were murdered and she was terrorised so she can write a book. It has supernatural elements, cults, over-the-top deaths, and most of all, bad writing. If you want to see my full journey from "this is great" to "I hate this," my full review will be linked in the description. We have now reached our destination. June has been wrapped. Please mind the gap as you depart. This was honestly a great month for me, the best so far. I hope that July can be just as good, and I honestly have no idea if I'm going to read enough books to do a wrap up next month, but I hope so. My question for today is this: which book contained a moment that made you facepalm, like I did whilst reading Terminus? I've had a lot of fun with this, and I hope you enjoyed it too. If you have, the like and subscribe buttons are just sitting there, waiting to be pressed. Now press them, or else. Or else what? You don't want to find out, mate. If you want to get in touch, you know where the comments section is, and the link to my Twitter is in the description. Say hi, and we can have a chat. Thanks ever so much for spending time with me today, guys. Until next time, take care. For now, I'm off, and you should have a good one. Then a fog monster appeared, and I facepalmed so hard that I almost broke my own nose. I facepalmed so hard I almost smashed my own teeth in. I facepalmed so hard I almost collapsed my own eye socket. I facepalmed so hard I almost gave myself brain damage. I facepalmed so hard I almost decapitated myself.